Welcome the rare gems. When you know your worth, you move differently. The world isn't always kind to women who refuse to follow the rules. If you're a Sigma female, you've probably been called intimidating, difficult, or even too much. People misunderstand you because you don't seek approval, you don't conform, and you don't apologize for existing on your own terms. But here's the truth. They don't have to understand you. You are not the problem. You are the blueprint. You are the example of what it means to live authentically without compromise. While others bend themselves to fit in, you stand firm. While they seek validation, you move with purpose. And while they fear solitude, you embrace it, knowing that your power has never come from being accepted. It has always come from being real. This path isn't always easy. The world will test you, pressure you, and try to make you doubt yourself. But the fact that you refuse to be controlled, manipulated, or silenced is exactly why you stand out. They may not say it, but deep down they see it. They see your strength. They see your independence. And whether they admit it or not, they respect it. So never question yourself, never shrink to make others comfortable. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to set the standard. Keep walking your path and let the world catch up. Let's get started. The rare gems. Number 1. You have no interest in pleasing the wrong people. Loyalty is a rare currency, and you don't hand it out like loose change. That unsettles people. They're used to those who seek approval, who bend over backward to be liked, who chase validation like it's oxygen. But you move differently. Your loyalty isn't for sale, and that alone makes you a mystery they can't decode. People will call it arrogance because they don't understand it. They'll say you're too cold, too distant, too selective. But let's be real. Most people are just uncomfortable with someone who knows their worth. You don't attach yourself to every smiling face or every fake compliment. You don't entertain meaningless friendships, empty conversations, or one-sided relationships. And because of that, those who thrive on surface-level connections will label you as difficult. But here's the thing. Selective loyalty isn't a flaw. It's wisdom. It's knowing that not everyone deserves access to you. It's understanding that your energy is valuable, and wasting it on the wrong people is a debt you don't owe. Some will resent you for it, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your existence reminds them of what they lack: boundaries, self-respect, and the strength to walk away from what doesn't serve them. You don't carry dead weight. You don't entertain those who drain you, manipulate you, or demand your time without offering anything real in return. And that makes you a problem for people who expect blind loyalty without earning it. But that's not your concern. You're not here to please the unworthy. You're here to stand firm in your truth, no matter who it offends. So let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. At the end of the day, the people who truly matter will never mistake your standards for arrogance. They'll recognize it for what it is: strength. And the rest? They were never meant to be in your circle anyway. Number 2. You don't apologize for existing differently. From the moment you were born, society had expectations waiting for you. Be polite, be soft, don't take up too much space, don't speak too loudly. Smile, even when you don't feel like it. But you rejected that programming without a second thought. You exist on your own terms, and for that, people don't know what to do with you. They expect you to shrink yourself to make others comfortable, to be agreeable, even when something feels wrong, to nod along even when you disagree. But you don't play that game. You refuse to be anyone's puppet. When something doesn't sit right with you, you say it. When a situation doesn't serve you, you leave. And when people try to mold you into something you're not, you break the mold without hesitation. That kind of self-possession is rare, and it intimidates those who are used to women seeking approval. They'll try to label you difficult, cold, rebellious, because they can't control you. But here's the truth. You're not difficult. You just refuse to settle for less. You're not cold. You simply don't waste warmth on those who haven't earned it. You're not rebellious for the sake of it. You just refuse to live by rules that were never made for you in the first place. And yet people will expect you to apologize for it, to soften yourself to fit their comfort zone, to explain why you choose to live unapologetically. But why should you? Apologies are for mistakes, and you didn't make one. You simply chose to be real in a world that rewards those who pretend. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your strength. You don't owe them an apology for existing differently. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, that's their burden to carry, not yours. Number 3, you refuse to dim your intelligence. There's a certain power in intelligence, and you own yours without hesitation. While others shrink themselves to fit in, you stand firm in what you know. You don't simplify your thoughts to make conversations easier, and you don't pretend to be less capable just to protect fragile egos. That alone makes people uneasy. Weak minds don't know how to handle a woman who thinks for herself. They expect you to be agreeable, to let them lead even when they have no idea where they're going. They mistake confidence for arrogance, directness for rudeness, and knowledge for superiority. But their discomfort is not your problem. You were never meant to fit into small spaces, and you don't exist to make others feel better about their limitations. You've seen how people react when you challenge their opinions. Some get defensive, some try to dismiss you, and others resort to insults because they can't argue with logic. It's not that they don't understand you, it's that they don't want to. A woman who knows her worth, who speaks with clarity, who refuses to be silenced, is a direct threat to those who rely on ignorance to maintain control. You've also noticed how often intelligence is mistaken for attitude. If you speak with certainty, you're called difficult. If you correct misinformation, you're labeled condescending. But if you played dumb, if you pretended not to know, suddenly people would find you more likable. That's the game society plays, rewarding those who stay quiet while punishing those who refuse. But you don't play that game. You don't make yourself smaller just to fit into someone else's world. Your intelligence is not arrogance. Your clarity is not aggression. Your confidence is not a flaw. It's strength, and anyone who feels threatened by it was never meant to stand beside you. Number 4, you hold your own in any room. You don't walk into a room trying to impress anyone, yet eyes naturally turn in your direction. It's not about arrogance or theatrics. You simply carry yourself differently. While others scramble for attention, raising their voices, putting on a show, or seeking approval, you remain still, observant, composed. That quiet confidence speaks louder than any performance ever could. People can sense when someone doesn't need validation. They notice when someone isn't desperate to fit in or be liked. And that unsettles them because most people are wired to seek external approval. But you exist in your own space, fully comfortable with who you are, and that makes you magnetic. Your presence alone shifts the energy in a room, not because you demand it, but because you don't. Some mistake your self-possession for coldness. They expect you to be more accommodating, to make yourself more accessible, to blend in. But you don't dilute your presence for the sake of anyone's comfort. You don't lower your standards or change your demeanor just to make insecure people feel at ease. If your confidence makes them uncomfortable, that's their burden to carry, not yours. What makes you different is that you command attention without chasing it. You don't rely on flashy words, exaggerated gestures, or forced charisma. You simply exist in a way that cannot be ignored. Whether in a boardroom, a social gathering, or even in silence, people feel your presence. They may not always understand it, but they recognize it, and whether they admit it or not, they respect it. That's what makes you a force to be reckoned with. Not because you try to be, but because you don't need to try at all. Number 5, she refuses to play the nice girl role. People are quick to label a woman difficult the moment she refuses to shrink herself for their comfort. Society has conditioned women to be agreeable, to avoid confrontation, and to prioritize everyone else's feelings over their own. A Sigma female refuses to play along. She's not here to fit into the nice girl mold that others try to force on her. She's kind, but she's not submissive. She's respectful, but she's not a doormat, and that alone makes people uneasy. She's the woman who won't nod along when she disagrees. She won't soften her opinions to make others comfortable. She won't apologize for having standards or enforcing her boundaries. When someone disrespects her, she doesn't smile and brush it off. She lets them know exactly where she stands. That directness intimidates people who expect women to be passive, but she doesn't care. She won't sacrifice her self-respect just to be more likable. People who are used to controlling others struggle with her because she can't be manipulated through guilt or social pressure. They expect her to say yes to things she doesn't want, to tolerate behavior she finds unacceptable, and to put everyone else's needs before her own. When she refuses, they call her cold, too much, or intimidating. But in reality, they're just not used to a woman who prioritizes herself. Her kindness is intentional. She treats people with respect until they give her a reason not to. She doesn't believe in being rude for the sake of it, but she also won't allow herself to be walked over in the name of being nice. She knows that being overly accommodating only invites people to take advantage of her, so she doesn't play that game. If standing up for herself makes her the villain in someone else's story, so be it. She'd rather be misunderstood than manipulated. She won't trade her strength for approval, and she certainly won't silence herself just to make others comfortable. Number 6. You refuse to be defined by trauma. Pain changes people, but it doesn't have to break them. Life has thrown its worst at you: betrayal, disappointment, loss. But you refuse to let any of it define you. You've been hurt, but you didn't stay wounded. You've been knocked down, but you never stayed down. Where others let trauma become their identity, you turned yours into fuel. Some people wear their past like a chain, dragging it with them wherever they go, letting it shape their every thought, every relationship, every decision. But not you. You don't deny what you've been through, but you don't let it control you either. You don't live in the past, replaying old wounds, or using your pain as an excuse to stay stagnant. Instead, you take everything life has thrown at you and turn it into wisdom, strength, and resilience. People who haven't done the same will struggle to understand you. They expect you to be bitter, to play the victim, to carry your scars as proof of your suffering. But your scars don't make you weak. They make you indestructible. You've learned to wear them like armor, a reminder of everything you've survived, a symbol of the battles you've won. You don't let pain define you. You let it refine you. This kind of resilience is rare, and it intimidates those who are still controlled by their past. They wonder how you keep moving forward, how you refuse to crumble under the weight of your experiences. The answer is simple. You refuse to be a prisoner of what hurt you. You took your pain, faced it, conquered it, and kept going. That's what makes you different. You don't run from your past, but you don't live in it either. And because of that, nothing, not heartbreak, not betrayal, not even life's hardest lessons, can break you. Number 7. You don't fear being the villain in someone's story. Most people exhaust themselves trying to be liked, bending and twisting to fit the expectations of others. But you've made peace with being the villain in someone's story. You don't live for approval, and you don't lose sleep over being misunderstood. If standing firm in your truth makes you the bad guy in someone else's narrative, so be it. You refuse to play by the unspoken rules that keep people trapped. Rules that say you must be agreeable, that you must always explain yourself, that you must sacrifice your boundaries to keep the peace. You know better. You've seen how people weaponize guilt, twisting situations to make you the problem the moment you stop tolerating nonsense. But you don't fall for that manipulation. If protecting your peace makes you selfish, if refusing to be used makes you difficult, then wear the title proudly. Some people need a villain to justify their own actions. They'll paint you as cold because you refuse to entertain their chaos. They'll call you ruthless because you don't let emotions override logic. They'll label you heartless because you walked away when they thought you'd stay. But that's not your burden to carry. Let them talk. Let them create whatever version of you they need to sleep at night. Their opinions don't change the truth. At the end of the day, you'd rather be real than be liked. You'd rather walk alone than be surrounded by people who only love you when you're easy to control. And that's what separates you. You don't exist to make others comfortable. You don't dilute your truth for the sake of fragile egos. You live on your terms, unapologetically. And if that makes you the villain, so be it. Number 8. You create trends, not follow them. There's something unmistakable about the way you move. You don't ask what's popular. You don't check to see what everyone else is doing before making your next move. You just do what feels right. And somehow, that always ends up setting the tone for others. People watch you closely, even when they pretend not to. They take notes, mimic your energy, and follow your lead, yet they'll never admit it. At first, you may not have even noticed it. You were too busy minding your own business, walking your own path. But over time, it became clear. The same people who dismissed you, who called you different, who didn't understand you, suddenly started adopting your ways. The words you once said, now they repeat them. The style you once rocked, now they claim it as their own. The mindset you cultivated, now they preach it like they discovered it first. It's a strange feeling watching people copy your essence while pretending you don't exist. They'll never give you credit. They'll never acknowledge that you were doing it first. But you don't need their validation. You already know who you are. You were never meant to follow trends because you were always the blueprint. That's what sets you apart. You don't move for attention, and you don't change yourself to fit in. People gravitate toward you because they sense something real, something they can't replicate no matter how hard they try. They can copy the surface, but they'll never match the depth. And that's the part they'll never understand. While they chase trends, you create them. While they look around for direction, you move forward without hesitation. And in the end, they always follow, because they have no choice. Number 9. She expects people to mean what they say. Words hold weight, but in today's world, most people treat them like air. Light, meaningless, and thrown around without a second thought. They say what sounds good in the moment, not what they truly intend. They make promises they have no intention of keeping, agree to things just to avoid confrontation, and speak in half-truths to maintain an image. But a Sigma female doesn't operate like that. If she says something, she means it. If she makes a promise, she follows through. If she gives her word, it's as good as done. That level of integrity isn't common, and it makes people uncomfortable. They aren't used to someone who actually holds them accountable for what they say. They expect to be able to backtrack, change the story, or play dumb when it's convenient. But that doesn't fly with her. She listens carefully, not just to words, but to actions. And the moment she notices a disconnect, she's gone. She has no patience for people who talk a big game but never back it up. This is why she doesn't let just anyone into her life. Most people fail the test without even realizing it. They expose themselves through contradictions, through empty words, through the little ways they prove they can't be trusted. And she takes note. She won't argue, she won't chase, she won't beg for honesty. She'll just remove herself. She'd rather have silence than meaningless words. She'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who say things they don't mean. Those who truly understand this about her respect her for it. They know she doesn't waste time with flattery, manipulation, or games. When she speaks with intention. And that's why her words carry power, because unlike most, she actually means them. Number 10. She chooses who enters her life, not the other way around. Most people move through life accepting whatever relationships, friendships, and connections come their way. They let people in out of convenience, loneliness, or a fear of being alone. A Sigma female doesn't operate that way. She understands that the people around her have the power to either elevate or drain her, so she guards access to herself with an iron will. She doesn't allow just anyone to take up space in her life. You don't get to be in her world just because you want to. She decides if you've earned that privilege. Her selectiveness makes people uncomfortable because it forces them to prove their worth instead of assuming automatic acceptance. She doesn't entertain shallow connections, tolerate inconsistent behavior, or keep people around just to fill a void. If someone doesn't align with her values, they're out. No warnings, no drawn-out explanations, just gone. This level of self-respect is rare, and that's why it's so misunderstood. People mistake her boundaries for arrogance. They think she's cold or difficult because she refuses to lower her standards. But what they don't realize is that she's not isolating herself. She's protecting her peace. She would rather be alone than surrounded by people who drain her energy, betray her trust, or offer nothing but surface-level interaction. When she lets someone in, it's because they've proven they deserve to be there. She values loyalty, depth, and consistency, and she expects the same in return. If someone tries to manipulate, control, or take advantage of her, They'll quickly learn that she has no patience for games. She doesn't chase, she doesn't beg, and she certainly doesn't compromise just to keep someone around. Her life is not an open-door policy. It's an exclusive space reserved for those who truly bring value, not just anyone who happens to show up. That's what makes her different. She moves with intention, and because of that, she only surrounds herself with the kind of people who actually deserve a seat at her table. Number 11. She sees red flags before they become problems. Most people see red flags and convince themselves they're just misunderstandings or quirks. They make excuses, overlook inconsistencies, and cling to hope that things will magically improve. A Sigma female doesn't have time for that kind of self-deception. She trusts what she sees, not what she wants to believe. The moment something feels off, she takes it seriously. She doesn't wait for proof that someone is a liar, a manipulator, or a coward. She recognizes it before they even have the chance to show their full hand. Her ability to read people unsettles them. She catches inconsistencies in their words, notices shifts in their energy, and picks up on the smallest behaviors that most people ignore. She's not the type to let charm or sweet words blind her. She watches actions, patterns, and the way people treat others when they think no one is looking. And when something doesn't sit right with her, she doesn't need a dramatic reason to walk away. A bad feeling is enough. This unnerves people who are used to getting away with their games. They expect her to be like everyone else, naive, overly trusting, and willing to give endless chances. But she's not interested in fixing, tolerating, or second-guessing what her intuition already knows. If someone shows her even a glimpse of manipulation, dishonesty, or weakness of character, she doesn't argue or explain. She just leaves. People call her too guarded or say she expects too much, but that's only because they've never had to be truly accountable before. They're used to getting away with half-truths, empty promises, and carefully crafted facades. That doesn't work on her. She's too sharp, too observant, and too experienced to fall for it. She doesn't waste time on potential. She deals in reality. And if that means cutting people off before they can cause damage, so be it. She'd rather walk away early than stick around long enough to say, "I should have known." The world doesn't always know what to do with a woman who refuses to follow the script. A woman who doesn't beg for approval, who walks away without explaining herself, who refuses to make herself smaller just to make others feel bigger. A Sigma female doesn't exist to make people comfortable. She exists to live on her own terms, whether the world understands it or not. You've been called intimidating, difficult, or too much. But that's only because people fear what they can't control. They don't know how to handle a woman who doesn't seek validation, who doesn't tolerate nonsense, and who holds herself to a higher standard. That's their problem, not yours. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to lower your standards just to be more likable. You are the blueprint, the proof that a woman can be whole without seeking permission, that she can lead without asking for a title, and that she can be respected without playing the nice girl role. Never let the world convince you that you're too much. The right people will see your strength and rise to meet it. The wrong ones will be intimidated, and that's exactly how it should be. Keep moving forward. Keep setting the standard. Keep being the woman who refuses to be defined by expectations. Because while others may not say it out loud, they're watching. And deep down, they know. You are what they wish they had the courage to be. Thank you for watching The Rare Gems, and God bless you.